Hey there, spiritualpreneurs. Welcome to our podcast where we talk about all the things mental health and spirituality.
That's right. We're your hosts, Biani and Sequoia, and we're here to provide you with the tools, tips, and insights to help you navigate your spiritual journey and maintain your mental wellness.
As millennials, we understand the unique challenges that come with balancing our spiritual and energy to prioritize our mental and spiritual health.
But that's where we come in. Each episode, we'll be sharing our personal experiences, interviewing experts in the field, and exploring different spiritual practices to support you and ourselves on this journey of unlearning from mental health programs, incorporating spirituality, and embodying our identities as spiritualpreneurs. I think we're freezing. Can you hear me?
Hey, yes, I can hear you. Oh no, we are freezing really bad. I don't know what's
We are
going on with
freezing.
that. I know. Okay, I think we're I think the connection is more stable now. Um, how about on your end, Biani?
Yes, I can hear you live, like it's
Okay,
flowing now. Can
okay,
you hear me?
okay. Yep, I can hear you, folks. If you can hear us, please let us know in the comments, like that you can hear us, you can see us, because clearly we are.
And we're freezing again. Yeah, if anybody's tuning in, let us know if you can hear us and see us clearly. Thanks, Crystal. You can hear us. Y'all is one of those days.
It is. It is. Mercury, I asked the other day, what is Mercury doing? Because honey, I don't this is it's a lot. Like the microphone situation is situationing. Um
Yes.
and so
Well,
this unstable.
there's some squares going on this week, and Mercury is traveling through Pisces at some point, according to the Channy app. Y'all can hear us? Oh, thank you. So, it's just like communication is gonna be a challenge this week. Thank you
It's a
for
lot
letting us
going
know you
on.
can hear
Yes.
us.
Thank you. Okay. And we can see you all's comments. Okay. So y'all are at least coming up in the chat. All right. So let's just hop right into things. It's our season 3 premiere, you all. And here we go. We're starting it off with a bang, and we've gone through some changes, and so we wanted to just reintroduce ourselves this episode, and so here we go. We want to share who we are, what we stand for, and what this season of the Reclaiming Soul Work podcast is all about. And we've been away for a minute, but we're back now. We're so excited to share with you all like the new episodes and what we've been up to. So please make sure to subscribe and join us live for our latest episodes, where we catch up with you on what we've been up to and what to expect from us moving forward. Thank you all so much for being patient with us.
Yeah, thank you for your grace. I'm trying not to laugh so hard, but it's just, the invitation for us to like just be kind to ourselves right now. And yeah. So welcome, y'all. Welcome to Reclaiming Soul Work. We are a heart-centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, mental health, and everything in between. My name is Biani. I use she and they pronouns. I identify as a Black femme, non binary healer, also a therapist and a doula and a tarot reader practitioner. And I want to acknowledge the land that I live, work, and play in, which is the Lenape-Hoking, also called Philadelphia. And I also want to honor like my benevolent guides and ancestors who brought me here today, who, see me through and guide me and support me. And, we were talking about astrology, and I am a Cancer rising, Virgo sun, Aries moon. Um, and there's a lot going on this week astrologically. I'm still like a newbie, but I know that the energy is intense this week with the planets. Mars is going conjunct with Neptune, and then Mercury's making some type of cazimi around Thursday. And so communication is supposed to be really, really intense. um, and so I'm just laughing because Sequoia and I have been really trying our best to start a couple minutes ago, and things happen. So here we are. Why don't you introduce
Thank
yourself, Fred?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much, Biani. Thank you all for, just letting us know again in the chat that you can hear us and see us and hanging in there with us. Again, my name is Sequoia. I use she and her pronouns. Um, I want to acknowledge the land that I am on, and go back and forth between Anchorage, Alaska, the land of Dena'ina, and also in Chicago. Um, and also want to acknowledge my ancestors from Alabama, from Selma, Alabama, and Mobile, Alabama, um, and those just practices, and just family and culture that I stand on. And yeah, just really glad to be in community with you all again. We've got so much to kind of update you on, and the I'm an Aquarius sun, Aries moon, Libra rising. Um, so those are my big three. And yeah, identify as an auntie. I am also a pet mama. And really excited about that interesting journey to be on. Um, and really excited just to again be here with you all for season 3.
You have the cutest pet. I know that you're trying to be all like chill about it, but the best, the best.
Oh, I appreciate that. I love her so much.
He's
I've
amazing.
learned so many lessons, been learning so many lessons with her, and I will say she has been just a pleasure to have, not only for emotional support for myself, but also for my clients. My clients love her. And clearly, those that I'm in community with and support also love her too. And so I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have her.
She's the
That's
best.
enough of the mushy stuff. That's enough of the mushy stuff. So let's hop into a little bit more of continuing to talk about introductions. And we wanted to add some different types of value as we move into season 3, different types of resources. You all know Biani and I love to pull together different ways to support the community, connect, engage. And so our plan is to archive our share and tell resources and talk more about them on Patreon. And just as a reminder, in season 1 and season 2, right before we hopped into our topics, Biani and I would share one resource and then tell about that particular resource. And usually it was something that was like a spiritual tool, something that we have been using throughout the month or the week. Could have been tarot cards, a book, so
Mhm.
on and so forth, right? And so, as I mentioned, we are going to go back through the seasons, all 13 episodes, and archive all of those share and tell resources for you all and talk more about them on Patreon. Because really, those are, again, a list of spiritual tools that we've utilized in our practice. And we want to get more specific about the ways that we've utilized those, maybe with clients, and clearly for our own personal reflection. But as I mentioned, that'll be more on Patreon. And we are building a reciprocal relationship with y'all. So we would love to see y'all on Patreon. But we'll share more about this later. So we are going to switch things up and talk a little bit more about our reflections on the business side of podcasting. As I mentioned, we are in season 3 on episode 14. And we've got some lessons that we want to reflect on, some things that we've learned and thought that it might be, cool to talk about those at this point. Talk more about our free resources, how we utilize those, and then also share more and reflect on some of our engagement questions that we post on our IG. We want to try to bring more of that, into our YouTube community because Biani puts together some amazing reflection questions, and I think that we can just talk more about those here. Biani, you want to add anything about any of that before we kind of top into any of those things?
Let's get into it.
That sounds amazing. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about podcasting, the business side of podcasting, because I don't know if y'all watch Abbott Elementary with Quinta Brunson. I think it's on ABC,
Okay.
but you can watch it on Hulu. And it basically follows, the um, this elementary school teacher kind of group in a local school in Philly.
Philly.
Philly,
She's from
yeah.
Philly. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, Philly. And I just love that show. But they had a recent episode about podcasting. And then I watched a movie recently called Vengeance that had Issa Rae in it. And the movie was about a lot of different things, but there was this context to a podcast in there. And so I bring all that up to
Mm.
say podcasting has really become an interesting part of our culture. You know, podcasts are at the center of a lot of our media and kind of pop culture conversations, even if you're talking about like things from like TikTok or, just other kind of topics related to mental health and even other interests, right? So I wanted to talk again more about how that's been impacting our culture and how we are kind of seeing um, how we're seeing spiritual podcasts, I would say, impact like that particular niche of podcasting, impact like the conversation. Our
Mhm.
podcast resource list has quite a few podcasts on there, and if you just go through, um, some of the kind of topics or just even some of the kind of focus areas of those podcasts, it's just really interesting to see like what spirituality, what the spiritual community is like focusing and talking about right now.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, just looking at that. The other thing the other reason that I wanted to mention that is because Biani and I applied to at the Black Podcast Awards, and we had to really think about like what category of podcast were we? Like, were we a spiritual podcast? Were we a mental health podcast? Were we a social work podcast? And I'm thinking about this podcasting culture topic, especially related to the spiritual community, because I feel like if we're categorizing ourselves as a spiritual podcast, we talking about some really interesting things that a lot of folks in that community are not talking about, related to some of those intersections. And so, what does that mean related to that, right? Like, what does that mean related to the business side of podcasting and the culture of podcasting and the way that we see things going? I appreciate you, Crystal. Yeah, Abby is amazing. I love that show. They talk about some just really current, relevant, contemporary, again, like pop culture issues. And when they had the podcasting episode in there, when the kids were learning how to podcast, I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. So that's how I'm thinking about things. What you think, Biani?
What's I first want to say, like, shout out to Quinta Brinson because she's repping Philly hard right now. But apparently, right, like podcasts, they're about 464 million podcast listeners, like globally. And every day there's a new podcast kind of like being like created, right? And I'm always, it's something that we thought about when we decided to start this podcast. And even still I struggle with, like, what are we, a spiritual podcast, a social work podcast? And I think because we fall in those intersections, I think that's why it's hard for us to feel like we have to like pick a side or pick a category, which feels really layered and nuanced. Um, but I think when it comes to like spiritual podcasts, I think what I feel like makes us stand out is that we do weave in the intersections. And I find, at least my experience with some spiritual podcasts, that there hasn't been a lot of space to intersect, like to build those bridges. And it's making me think about like our identities, like me as a Black Latinx femme, and my spiritual practice is shaped by my like lineage and experience, but then it's also shaped by like being a social worker and a therapist. Like there's all these ways that our identities, our lived experience. Um, I'm trying not to read Dr. Nicole's comment, but it's like pretty genius. But yeah, I find that the popularity of podcasts, like, yes, there's a lot of folks listening to podcasts, but there's not a lot of space still for nuance and intersectionality and weaving in, like, that not everything's a clear yes and clear no. Like, I think one of the things that I really appreciate about the space that we've created, and this is why and we'll talk a little bit more about Patreon later, but this is why we felt like we needed a Patreon too, because we've seen that other spiritual entrepreneurs, spiritual therapists, and practitioners have been, we don't have a space like this for us, and yeah, I mean, I want to read Dr. We should read her comments soon, but it's true. There's not a lot of space for like holding the nuance of like even thinking about spirituality and what does it look like to practice decolonized spirituality, and then what happens when we have to examine decolonized spiritual practices, or what does it mean when there's some spiritual practices that really don't belong to us, right? And I find that in some spiritual podcasts we do a lot of like appropriation of spiritual practices. I've been guilty of that too, and I'm in community and really doing that work. But I think sometimes in spiritual podcast spaces, there's a lot of like, not a lot of nuance around what does it mean to practice. Like we're talking about the chakras, but that's not really, our like, for a lot of us, it's not really our practice. Or even my training when I first like entered Western Reiki and then had to do a lot of decolonizing around, hey, actually Western Reiki, it's not my practice, sacred energy is more aligned for me. And so yeah, there's not a lot of space for the intersections. And I think that's why it was very important for us to start reclaiming soul work. But I'll stop because can we shout out Dr. Nicole though? Because I just try not to laugh so hard, but it's so true and it's so brilliant.
Oh yeah, definitely. So the comment says we need more podcasts like y'all that are at the intersections because it helps to give more voices outside the loud, ashy podcast bros and their allies. I yes.
But you know what? Thank you, Dr. Nicole. Like, but it's true. I struggle to listen to podcasts sometimes because I find that people are just not really getting it. Like we're replicating the same kind of harm we claim we're against, and some things feel really rigid. There's not a lot of space for like, like, where are the Black feminists at? Where are the queer folks, like the queer feminists at? Like, where are the folks who are really examining capitalism and systemic oppression? Like, where are y'all at? Like, I know y'all out there, but it seems like the popular podcasts are the ones that I just kind of struggle with, because I'm just like, my spiritual practice is so intersectional and political. Like, it's not. We'll talk about that though in a future episode, y'all. But yeah.
So many reflections. And I love this, right? Like this is one of the reasons why we're switching things up, right? Because Biani and I talk about these things when we have our weekly meetings. And so we were like, let's try to figure out again another way to add value, but then also just be real with y'all about the way that we are navigating uh the podcast and just certain aspects of um this, right? So yeah,
And
i
how
i
hard it's
appreciate
been.
you. Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
think holding to
Yeah.
what it means for us to hold our core values, um, that are really guided by our ethics and like our practices,
Mm-hmm.
and like, what does it mean for us to just be who we are, you know, as intersectional, Black queer feminists who are spiritual, who are healers and entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
and struggling with being in these spaces that are still like really doing the same harm that we claim we're against. So some
Mm-hmm.
people have these platforms, but they're hurting a lot of people, or it's just not like resonating for us. Like, it doesn't feel like it's a space for us. So
Yes. I We want to share more about why we wanted to talk about the update, starting with the launch of, season three. And as we kind of mentioned at the top of the live stream, we've been gone for a little bit. We took a break. There's been so much stuff going on, y'all. There's been so much stuff going on, and I think it's important to model our values, that we talk about with our clients, that we talk about with our friends, and I think it's important that we model that even in the way that we approach our podcasting. We appreciate you all so much, and also, content creation, development, it takes a lot of energy. And we're really excited about the Patreon again, so that we can continue to build that reciprocal, relationship, and model again for you all a lot of these practices that folks talk about, especially this rest piece, right? And so we rest. We took some time to rest and take care of the things that were going on. And that's kind of where we are. We slowed down. We took a look at our description and our focus for the podcast. And again, we're going to get more into that. But for me, like, that's why we wanted to share with you all, about the updates kicking off season three. Again, just to acknowledge, like, we've been gone and we needed to rest.
I'm just gonna say woo sa. And I don't know if you are like a millennial, maybe an older millennial, you'll get that reference. Let me know in the comments what I'm referencing. But yeah, we whew, taking a deep breath. It's been a roller coaster for us, y'all. Filled with ups and downs, starts and stops, and we just needed to honor our capacity. And like Sequoia said, we really want to model that, because I think in our culture, and like even in the podcast ecosystem, there's a lot of pressure to be productive and be consistent and post every day and and we really had to like honor our inner winter. Shout out to Dr. Nicole, who recommended this book, which I'll share over on Patreon. But I read this book after Dr. Nicole mentioned it in her on her TikTok. And I we all have our seasons, we all have our seasons. And we had our winter. Our winter started early, right before the winter solstice. And we really had to honor that rhythm. And it meant disconnecting from the world to reconnect to ourselves. And that was a part of our spiritual practice, part of our practice of honoring. Like rest is a spiritual practice, which makes it a practice for all of us, you know? And we really had to honor our capacities and check in with each other. And I think it even like deepened our friendship, you know, because we were able to just sort of like hold space, like, you know what, we're not going to record today. Like, yep, we got like, let's remember our values, right? Let's resist the culture of urgency that will have us like neglecting our bodies and our needs. So we hope for whoever's listening that that like really resonates for you, giving yourselves permission to just rest.
Thank you so much for that reflection, Biani. Absolutely. And, I think that's just a beautiful way for us to continue to get into it. Hear the order of things. And in case you want to prepare, you might want to grab, a journal or, turn your volume up, grab yourself some tea. We want to talk a little bit about why we took the pause, where have we been, what are we talking about this season, what's the format for this season of the Reclaiming Soul Work podcast, why do we decide to launch a Patreon, and how have we gotten more focused about who we like to connect with.
Ooh,
What you think, Biani? You ready?
I'm
Ready to
ready.
hop right in?
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Why the pause? Feels like such a big. um, I think one thing I'll say about the pause is that we really, we really had to take some time to rest. So I'll say personally, I got sick. My family and I got sick. We got the C, the Rona. It finally caught up to us after almost 3 years. And again, like shout out to Dr. Nicole. Yeah, the book really resonated. Thanks, Doc. Um, we really had to kind of like take a step back and revisit like why we were doing this podcast and who we were doing this podcast for. And we're at a place where we had to just sort of really look at ourselves and look at the podcast and check in about who we're really wanting to like serve and be in community with. Does that make sense, Sequoia? Yeah.
Absolutely makes sense.
Um, and for us, you know, we really wanted to kind of make a space for like spiritual entrepreneurs, therapists, practitioners, and actually not just therapists, but folks who are like us, ready to reclaim the sacred, ready to reclaim soul work. Um, because for us, we feel like that's really missing in our field, like social work and in therapy. But I also think it's really missing in a lot of spaces too. I'll stop there because I want to hear what Sequoia is going to say about why we paused.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that, Biani. Yeah, and for me, I have been caregiving and it has just been it's been a lot. Um I feel like there's so much going on right now, and there is a lot of focus on these very heavy kind of social things that are happening. And also, it feels like the care and the love is on empty, it's on
Mm.
zero, and so one of the reasons that we needed to slow down was and I'm going to say for myself, one of the reasons that I needed to slow down was to recenter the care and the love for myself. And, I felt like we were and are still on a wonderful journey to building community. And, that when we came back, folks who really, again, align with those values will be ready to check in, key with us, and hop right back into it, and get into some things. So for me, why the pause and where we've been caring and loving and recentering ourselves, our families, just the things that are important, just during this season where it's been weird. It's been weird out here. It's been weird out here.
It's so, so wild. Yeah, we have been kind of caretaking. I mean, remember, y'all, we're also still practitioners. We have clients. We're both caregivers. I have 3 kids. And Sequoia is amazing, like taking care of their elder parent. And yeah, I mean, I think we had to kind of reset
Yeah,
and yeah, and wanting to also really connect with the folks that feel like our community, you know? Um, like like sometimes you have to kind of slow down to reconnect with yourself to sort of be like, why am I doing this again? Like coming back to the why. And we had to come back to the why. And the pause allowed us to do that. Um, yeah.
definitely. Definitely. Let us know in the comments, you know, have you had to pause recently? What have you been doing to take care of yourself during that time? What you think about the care and love meters around your communities. Are they on E? Are they half full? Are they full? I don't feel it. I don't
You
feel
know,
it. I feel like it's
we
on
wanna
empty.
right. I mean, one of our episode about burnout and learning burnout, I think that really resonated for us too. Like somebody posted on responded on our IG that one of their like somebody that they know, and I can't remember their name, I'm sorry, but if you're tuning in, please feel free to add it in the comment. But she mentioned somebody who calls burnout spiritual pain. And I'm still sitting with that. I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. I'm letting it settle in me a little bit because there's something that feels true to me about that experience of burnout. I think so many of us are experiencing burnout to the point that it feels nonstop and persistent. And I feel like it needs a name that burnout is not capturing. um,
Hmm.
but this idea of pain really resonates.
Hmm.
And I don't know
That's
what it means,
interesting.
like this idea of spiritual
Hmm.
pain. It's in our comments if you go down our RG, y'all. But we've been really connecting with like some really dope spiritual therapists and just checking in with folks around their practices. And, so many of us as caregivers, care workers are just navigating, the levels of exhaustion to insurmountable levels now. It's just like, it's not even like you say burnout, it don't even sit with people. Like, it's just, it's like so many of us are just like on a different, like we're just done. Some people are just done. Really having to check out to take care of themselves. Like it's reached that point.
Definitely. I appreciate Crystal's comment. I've been saying no a lot and setting boundaries, even with those in my community. Oh,
Ooh, baby. Woo.
yes, yes. Definitely, definitely. I'm just laughing because it just resonates so much,
Yes.
and it's hard, and you also have to do it. And so yeah, I think that reassessing is what a lot of us have been doing. And I think that might be a nice way to segue into a place that we've reassessed related to the format. Of our season for season 3. Um, I enjoyed our panelists. What about you, Biani?
Oh my gosh. If y'all remember, we had episode 10. We invited some spiritual practitioners to talk about intuition and trauma. And first of all, I have to say, I really enjoyed the panel. And I also know that we're not talking about trauma when it comes to trusting your intuition. And we know in spiritual spaces and new age spaces, there's a lot of talk about trusting intuition, but there's not a lot of talk about what it means as a survivor of trauma of any type. I mean, I would say like, living in the system, what does it mean to trust our intuition? So this panel we had with Lauren Donaldson and why did I just go? This happens to me a lot. Her name is right there. Okay. Well, we had these two. I'm so sorry. It's really not. It's brain fog. Straight up brain fog is really just straight up brain fog. But we this panel really was incredible, and it seems like y'all really liked it too. Y'all loved um the experience of having panelists talk about their expertise around these subjects. And we know y'all loved it, and we loved this so much that we are going to do more of it this season. We're going
We
to bring
had
it
so much
back.
fun. Yes, we had so much fun and really connected with a lot of folks who, I'll say for that particular episode, we had a lot of folks that reached out. We had to, we were like, wow, there are other spiritual practitioners out there, spiritualpreneurs like us out there who want to talk and have a conversation. So let's extend it into our next season. So shout out to you all, for wanting to support our podcast. Also talk to us about, these really interesting and nuanced kind of conversations. And yeah, we're gonna do more of that.
And I also want to say Nadeline Finn, shout out to Nadeline Finn, Day Lotus Divination, who was on our panel as well, the intuition and trauma panel. But yes, we are going to do more of that. And, why don't y'all let us know too? Now that y'all know, we're going to bring in more expert panelists, and we're going to have some really kind of really dope conversations that people aren't having when it comes to spirituality, mental health, and wellness and everything in between. So if you have people in mind, or if there's some topics that you've been really curious about, let us know in the comments. Make sure that you let us know, because we want to make sure that we create spaces where we're having these conversations that others aren't really having.
Definitely. And so you all can let us know either in the comments. You can send us an email at reclaimingsoulworkpod@gmail.com. We are on Instagram. We are also, you can send us a message through our website, and let us know, if you would be interested in joining us on the podcast. And so, yeah, definitely also, if you are listening to us, subscribe to our channel, subscribe to us wherever you are listening to us. We are on a few different platforms at this point that are streaming podcasts. So, follow us there, so that we can start to connect with you all on those platforms. Join our newsletter and our email list, and also become a Patreon member. I think that's a good segue into why do we start our Patreon.
Patreon. um, so I'm gonna assume that you know what Patreon is, because I feel like so many folks are using it. But um, for Sequoia and I, we really and really, because we've been getting so much feedback from y'all, for those who are watching, listening, um, where there are not a lot of spaces for folks like us. And even with our share and tell, we're moving our share and tell to Patreon, because we know it's time for us to like really be together as a community and engaging these resources that really hold us and support us as spiritualpreneurs and practitioners. And so Patreon is going to be the place where we're going to have our book club, because we're going to be reading some really great stuff to talk about together in community. We're also going to have some live Q&As. Like, we really wanted the Patreon to be a space where, if you really want to spend more time with us and be in community with other like-minded folks, Patreon's going to be the place. We're going to meet with you monthly in the book club. We'll have live Q&As. We'll answer any questions you might have. We're going to sort of create space for like live consulting or supervision sessions for like, new grads or people who are kind of like, hey, I want to really bring in spirituality into my work. How do I do that? Well, Patreon's going to be the place for you to get that type of support from us. And yeah, the Patreon is about building community, more intentional community, so that you can, you know, have a space where you get to reclaim soul work. Because it's time that we do that. It's really time. It's not yesterday, it's not tomorrow, it's now. It's time for us to incorporate spirituality and build community and decolonize our practices. So, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I was gonna say, and to be real, again, it's also us building a
Yeah, let's be
reciprocal
real.
relationship with y'all related to content creation. We are, I appreciate that. Feedback, Dr. Nicole, about loving panels and love the fact that we'll do more panels because it's also good to just see how folks talk with one another for education and
Right.
fun. Yeah, absolutely, right? We love to be able to offer our panelists at some point a stipend,
Yeah.
for coming on. We also have costs associated with this podcast at this point, you know. So there are these other things that are these very concrete and real things that are attached to supporting us through the Patreon. We have a few different tiers for folks to sign up. So if you just want to support, there's a tier for you. If you want to, be more active and engaged, then there's a tier for you as well there. Um, and we're just going to have fun with it. We've transformed, just in a sense, the way that we are thinking about how we want to engage with folks, and we're really excited to, just roll out some of these offerings. Um, I feel like, as Biani said, the time is now related to building that community, and again, that's really aligned with just what we're seeing happen in many universities, just related to access to certain education, not being accessible anymore. I was looking at some information about gender and women's studies programs, across the United States recently, and how there were only so many, clearly operating, and how it's just dwindled down to really not that many universities that even have gender and women's studies departments open anymore. So I say
Mhm.
all that to say spaces where we can continue to build on um, ways to not only support ourselves and continue to build our own self awareness as spiritualpreneurs and practitioners, but spaces where we can continue to grow and develop for our clients as well. That's kind of what how we're thinking about these things. Um, and
And I
so,
love that you're
yeah,
reminding us. I also love that you're reminding us because it's true. Um, you becoming a Patreon member helps support the podcast. It helps it helps us continue this work that we're doing. It helps us support two Black queer femme healers and care workers who really believe in this work. And we get to really bring in um, other like colleagues and practitioners in the field who are doing this work. We get to offer them an energy exchange for it. But with your support, we get to kind of keep the lights on, honestly, from like managing our newsletter, content creation, like running, like having these live episodes, like anything, like whether you're offering a tip jar or joining monthly, your support is going to really mean a lot to keep this work going that we know will change really like lives, not just for the practitioners, but the folks and communities that they serve. So yeah, please, please, please check out our Patreon. Um, we have links on our website, but we'll have it in the description when this episode goes, when it's ready for watching again on playback. But yeah, yes, I will stop there.
I wanted to just really quickly read our description and how we have kind of focused in for the podcast. Um, so, Reclaiming Soul Work is a heart centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of spirituality, social work, mental health, and everything in between. Succinct, to the point, period.
All right. Sorry. We are I'm a little y'all. Um so why don't you go, Sequoia?
We love for you all to subscribe to the channel. Please ensure that however you are listening to us, whether that be on our YouTube channel or across the streaming platforms that we're on now, please make sure to follow us there as well. Join our newsletter, email list, and become a Patreon member. We'd love to have you. We would love to have you all. We are going to hop into our last update right before we do our main takeaways and wrap things up. Um, and it really just ties into what Biani and I were mentioning before related to building community and why things are so important now. You know, our initial kind of focus has been on unlearning and centering new grads and kind of social work students, having that kind of focus, but also talking about conversations, that were really aligned with our own time during social work school, and just having those conversations that we would have liked to have during that time while we're still focusing, that is still at the center of our focus. We're also really happy that we found some folks who are millennial spiritualpreneurs like us. So, other mental health practitioners that incorporate spirituality into our practices, that are also business owners and wear multiple different hats, right? And looking for others again who are on that kind of journey of unlearning certain things from our different mental health programs while incorporating spirituality. So I'm really excited about that. You got any thoughts about that, Biani?
I was just thinking, I know I've been asked, why are y'all focusing on unlearning? and um it's interesting because for us, it's really a part of our framework. So if you check out season 1, you'll hear more about it, why unlearning is a part of this season, and is connected to our framework, of unlearn, learn, and relearn. Um, and yeah, I mean, my thought is that um, our unlearning journey is really connected to our like work as spiritualpreneurs, and they really go hand in hand. And so if you I would say if you call yourself a spiritualpreneur and unlearning is not a part of your like practice, but you want it to be, join our Patreon community. We're here to support you on that. We think it's really the foundation of this work. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I love that, a lot of like millennials or folks who are like, coming out of the field, coming out of grad school, excuse me, and they realize that they're having to heal and recover from so much of their experience. And there's a way to do that with some grace, some compassion. Doing that in community is important. Inviting a practice of unlearning. We have some resources for that. Even if you go to our IG page, we have some prompts for you. You can check out past newsletter newsletters that we posted around it. You can find that on our website. Like, we're really committed to supporting you on this journey of unlearning so that you can really be the authentic spiritualpreneur and practitioner that you've always meant to be. And for us, unlearning is a part of that foundation. So that's my thought.
Amazing, amazing. I, I feel good about where we are. I feel like, we've kind of shared, and I want to acknowledge something that Crystal's comment a while back, about thank you for being vulnerable and for your transparency. Yeah, I think we're at a place where, I know for my, let me speak for myself. For myself, like again, that is the place where I know care and love are centered in that vulnerability and transparency, and a lot of times that is connected to again just being straight up about capacity. And as you mentioned, Crystal, saying no to some shit, and that's what we gonna do.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, I I think we're ready to kind of maybe move into main takeaways. Maybe I already started my main takeaways. I don't know.
You did. You started. You did. I guess what I'll say is like there are so many main takeaways, but one thing that's resonating is um, how it isn't really important for us to honor our capacities. And I'm glad that we did that. And I'm glad that it actually created space for us to really refocus and get clear about Reclaiming Soul Work podcast season 3, 2023. Like that we gave ourselves permission to like take this time and return the way that we were meant to. And this is the stuff that we want to model, and we are modeling because we hope for that. We have that wish for y'all too, which is why we want y'all to join our Patreon community, because there you'll really get to have these spaces where you get to unlearn and be in a practice of reclaiming. So I don't know if I answered the takeaway piece, but I'm grateful that we
Oh
honored
yeah.
our rest.
Definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you all so much for being with us today. We're going to keep this conversation going. As I mentioned, if anything that we've mentioned resonated, please let us know in the comment section, especially on the playback. If you're checking us out tonight, please make sure that you hit that like button on the way out. Um, Share your thoughts or questions in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you all. We talked a lot about care and love and different ways to honor the self. Again, please ensure that you're letting us know um, how you're doing that. We love to stay connected with you all. So join us in 2 weeks on Monday, March 27th at 5:30 Central. We streamed a little bit later tonight. Thank you all for your patience with that. We'll be back to our regular time on 5:30 Central on March 27th for episode 15, where we're going to talk about social work programs are a lie, honey, and what we wish we knew. Social work programs don't prepare you for the realities of the work we do in the field. As much as they promise this type of preparation for the truth, it is a lie. Okay? Social work programs often prepare us to be complicit with the power structures we claim to fight against, to neglect our own boundaries, and to be in a persistent state of burnout.
Well, preach. Let me stop. Okay. Thanks again. Thank you for being in community with us and supporting a heart centered podcast by two queer Black femme healers and spiritual social workers who explore the intersection of magic, spirituality, mental health, and everything in between. Of course, y'all know, but please, we'd love to stay connected and build this spiritualpreneur and healing community. So be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page at Reclaiming Soul Work Podcast. Once you subscribe, you can set reminders for notifications when we release a new episode. You can also sign up at the landing page on our website to be notified when we have a new episode and for future offerings. You can join our free newsletter, The First Quarter Moon. We share prompts there, really like helpful prompts for every lunar cycle, news, offerings, events, and updates. And really do please join our Patreon. It's live, it's happening, and we have amazing programs coming for those who are a part of our Patreon community. So you don't want to miss it.
Thank you all. Have a good night.